This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart. It's Tuesday, January 7th. This is Africa 54. What additional steps can Kenya take to defeat the al-Shabaab terrorist group? We'll have the details. An explosion rocks a crowded bridge on the Cameroon-Nigeria border. And in our medical report, Africa 54 takes a closer look at the damage caused by spinal disorders and how to prevent them. A gunfight between Kenyan police and members of the al-Shabaab terrorist group erupted Tuesday and has left 4 civilians dead, including a child, according to the police. The militants attacked a telecommunications mast in the third such violent incident in Kenya this week. The raid occurred in northern Garissa County, which neighbors Somalia. The attackers, however, did not damage the telecom network. Police say they killed 2 of the attackers and recovered 2 assault rifles, along with bomb-making materials. Meanwhile, the United States has dispatched more troops to Kenya to reinforce security after al-Shabaab killed 3 Americans on Sunday in an attack on a military base used by the U.S. forces. Al-Shabaab's recent attack on a military base that hosts joint U.S. and Kenyan forces in the coastal region of Lamu was meant to score some propaganda points, according to a security expert. But other analysts say that while the East African country has made a lot of progress domestically, it needs robust cooperation from across the region to defeat the group. VOA correspondent Mariama Diallo reports.
Gunfire could be heard in video taped several kilometers away from Kenya's Manda Bay airfield. Attackers breached the heavily secured base at dawn, but were pushed back. 5 jihadists were killed, according to Kenya's army spokesperson. 3 Americans were also killed in the attack, among them 23-year-old Army Specialist Henry Mayfield Jr.
Break my heart. It's, you see people and I just saw him this summer, I don't have words to say. It's just breaking my heart.
Matt Bryden, an analyst at the Sahan Research and Development Organization, says it was a bold attack.
I think we might see a threat that could bifurcate or move in one of 2 ways. Either this is an indication of al-Shabaab's intent to continuously strike Kenya, something we know that they do intend to do, or it could be also an indication of al-Shabaab's determination now to strike American targets.
But the damage caused by the attack was exaggerated by the group, says Kenyan security expert Mustafa Ali.
It's a daring attack by al-Shabaab to ostensibly to score some propaganda points so that it can use that for propaganda purposes in Somalia and around the world.
Al-Shabaab has been launching regular cross-border raids since Kenya sent troops into Somalia in 2011 as part of an African Union force to protect the internationally backed government, which the jihadists have been trying to overthrow for more than a decade. Kenya, Bryden says, needs more help.
And unless we see better cooperation across the region, then Kenya is going to remain vulnerable. And it's al-Shabaab who has the initiative in being able to choose when to attack, what to attack, how to attack, and Kenya has to be able to block every one of those attacks, which of course is impossible.
The Lamu region, which includes the popular tourist destination Lamu Island, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, lies close to the Somali border and has suffered frequent attacks. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
In West Africa, a bomb blast in northeastern Nigeria has killed at least 30 people and wounded many more. An improvised explosive device detonated Monday on a crowded bridge at around 5 p.m. local time in Ggamboru in Borno State. The bridge, which leads into neighboring Cameroon, is a popular crossing and trading point. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, but both Boko Haram and a regional offshoot of the Islamic State terrorist organization are active in the area. A Tanzanian court has charged rights activist Tito Magoti with money laundering and other offenses after detaining him for 4 days, according to the Legal and Human Rights Center. Prosecutors in Kisuto court say Magoti and co-worker Theodory Giyan are being charged with leading organized crime, money laundering, and possessing computer programs designed for the purpose of committing crimes. Both appeared in court Tuesday, but the hearing of their case was postponed until January 21st. Magoti was arrested by plainclothes officers who hustled him into an unmarked car on Friday, initially raising fears that he had been abducted. Although Dar es Salaam Regional Police Commander Lazaro Mambosasa confirmed his arrest, Magoti's family and friends were unable to contact him until his court appearance. A statement from his lawyer, his employer, said the suspects were in good health, but that Magoti appeared very tired. They had been questioned about their relationship with fellow activists Maria Sarungi and Fatma Karume, and with opposition politician Zito Kabwe.
We would advise the government that the prosecutor should first gather enough evidence before suing someone in court. This will help to reduce the number of cases in court, cases which have no evidence. The court needs to make sure that the law of the land is respected. In this case, it has proven that law has been broken down. People have been sued in court without investigation taking place. This is what we are raising here.
Late October, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch both denounced what they say was a deteriorating human rights situation in Tanzania. They argue that since President John Magufuli came to power at the end of 2015, his administration has stepped up repressive action against the country's news media, civil society, and the opposition. America's European allies have urged a de-escalation by all sides following Iran's pledge to retaliate for the U.S. killing of the country's top general, Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a drone strike at Baghdad's airport Friday. Protests have erupted across the Middle East. As Henry Ridgwell reports from London, NATO has suspended its training mission in Iraq as fears grow of an escalation in violence.
While America's European allies were not given advance warning of the attack on Iran's top general, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said his country would not lament Soleimani's death. Britain, like the US, is among the nations that suffered at his hands, say analysts.
Qasem Soleimani has been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of American troops and other Western troops, including British troops.
As tens of thousands mourned in Iran, Britain, France and Germany issued a joint statement calling on all parties to exercise utmost restraint and responsibility. The European Union has invited Tehran's foreign minister to Brussels in a bid to diffuse tensions.
There is a mutual understanding that the engagement should continue, but it's on the Iranian side to let us know how they want to proceed.
Europe hopes the 2015 Iran nuclear deal can be saved, despite Tehran's announcement that it will now disregard all restrictions on its nuclear enrichment activities.
In my view, I don't think the deal is dead until there's an escalation that leads to war.
Iran has pledged military retaliation, and US allies fear they could also be targeted. NATO has suspended its training mission in Iraq, numbering several hundred troops, part of the Western coalition to defeat Islamic State. The alliance's Secretary General refused to comment Monday on whether NATO allies would support the United States in any conflict with Iran.
We have recently seen an escalation by Iran, including the strike on a Saudi energy facility and the shoot-down of an American drone. At our meeting today, allies called for restraint and de-escalation. A new conflict would be in no one's interest.
Russia and China both condemned the killing of Soleimani. Analysts say Tehran could now seek greater support from its allies.
Before this escalation, China, Russia, and Iran actually held naval exercises in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman.
In the Middle East, anti-US protests have spread from Iran and Iraq to Turkey, the Palestinian territories and Lebanon. Protesters also took to the streets in Pakistan. Meanwhile, Iran's long-time foe, Israel, praised the US action.
President Trump is worthy of all appreciation for acting decisively, swiftly, and with strength.
All eyes are now on Iran and whether it will heed global calls for restraint or fulfill its pledge to exact revenge. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
American political analysts do not expect the U.S. tensions with Iran will turn into a full-fledged war. Iranians are mourning the death of General Qasem Soleimani, who was killed Friday by a U.S. drone strike. Democrats in the U.S. Congress want to curb the presidential war powers, which the Republican lawmakers reject. VOA's Ladza Hoke reports many Americans expressed their opposition to war with Iran in street protests on Saturday and Sunday.
While Americans demonstrate their opposition to another war in the Middle East, Iranians are mourning the death of their top general. The country's supreme leader has vowed revenge, and the U.S. president has warned against it, saying that Washington would respond by targeting prominent sites in Iran. Democrats in U.S. Congress are concerned about Trump's escalation with Iran and say the House of Representatives will vote on a resolution this week to limit his ability to take military action against Iran without congressional approval.
At times like this, it's essential for Congress to provide a check on the president, our constitutional role in matters of war and peace.
A top Republican in the U.S. Senate has accused the Democrats of acting in the interest of the party instead of the country.
Can we not at least wait until we know the facts? Can we not maintain a shred, just a shred, of national unity for 5 minutes? For 5 minutes before deepening the partisan trenches.
But analysts say a U.S.-Iran war is unlikely despite the angry rhetoric.
There's no appetite for war in the United States, but at the same time, the United States became convinced that if they did nothing in response to the constant attacks on U.S. diplomats and U.S. contractors, that they would only continue. So there really doesn't seem to be much sense that there is going to be an imminent military conflict.
Persian Gulf nations are eager to prevent a war in their vicinity, says analyst Barbara Leaf.
The UAE and Saudi Arabia have been very muted in what they've said, but the theme of their comments is essentially time for de-escalation, time for a political approach to resolving these issues.
Meanwhile, Iraqi officials seem reluctant to act on their parliament's decision to expel U.S. troops from Iraq after Trump threatened to impose sanctions on Iraq.
Prime Minister Abdel Mehdi is holding off on his, the signing of this legislation. The Kurds did not participate. A lot of the moderate Shia parties did not, and the Sunni parties did not. Some were forced to be there by this Shia militia political conglomerate called the Banaa Party. They voted in parliament. They were the only ones there.
Mahdi resigned at the end of November following massive anti-government demonstrations in Iraq and will step down when the parliament approves his replacement. Zlarica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
As always, we are excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the founder of Fast Chiropractic Center in Addis Ababa explains the dangers of spinal disorders. You're watching Africa 54, and we'll be right back.
Tell them, say you there. Tell your neighbor, tell them, say you there. Tell them, say you there. This message na for them bad model of them. We dey sit down.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Creating videos has become a popular sales tactic for Chinese farmers. The clips show increasingly discerning consumers the origins of the product and provide a window into rural life that captures audience imagination. Beekeeper Ma Gongzhu says, thanks to his viral videos, he now sells between $285,000 and $428,000 worth of honey each year, as well as dried sweet potato and brown sugar. China is home to the world's largest market for live video broadcasting, according to U.S. audit firm Deloitte. ByteDance says it has organized training for 26,000 farmers on how to master the art of making videos.
This looks like it could be expensive once I give it a press, but it was a doona.
Next up, where others see trash, Melbourne-based costume maker Rhiannon Irving sees
This
gems.
will be with shoelaces, but they're
Fish-shaped soy sauce containers become necklaces. Old curtains turn into capes fit for a king, and bed covers are fashioned into Elizabethan-era skirts. Her venture has had a positive response in her industry. The Melbourne Shakespeare Company commissioned 30 costumes from her for their production of The Taming of the Shrew. All the costumes are made of disposable plastics and used fabrics. In 2018, a group of scientists concluded that fashion was responsible for 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is almost the same as the European Union. And finally, a U.S. startup has reverse-engineered the coffee bean, producing imitation coffee with the same flavor, but without the same time, expense, and environmental impact of using beans. Atomo Coffee is still adjusting its process and ingredients. It is currently exploring the use of proteins, carbohydrates, and oil components from commercial farming byproducts. These include watermelon seeds and sunflower seed husks. Last year, the head of the U.S. coffee trade body said low coffee prices may be pressuring farmers to carve out land in rainforests for survival. Atomo Coffee hopes to have its cold-pressed product commercially available in early 2020. And that's what's trending today.
It's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with news on the high rate of cervical cancer in East Africa.
Hello. That's right, Esther. East Africa has the highest rates of cervical cancer in the world, according to the World Health Organization. In October, Kenya launched a mass vaccination of girls against the human papillomavirus, or HPV, which can lead to cervical cancer. For those who contracted HPV, the vaccine is being welcomed in hopes of protecting their children against cervical cancer. Raul Ombo has more from Nairobi.
We go to church to do what?
30-year-old Jacinta Agunja tested positive in 2016 for one of the human papillomaviruses, HPV, that lead to cervical cancer. After 2 years of intensive and expensive treatment, she was thankfully free of HPV and did not get cancer. Agunja hopes Kenya's mass vaccination of girls launched in October will prevent her 10-year-old daughter from also getting the virus.
That vaccine, I just need it to help my daughter and other women who are not sexually active for now. When they come to be sexually active, they'll be already protected, so they cannot go through what I went through. Because most of women in informal settlement, they cannot afford that much.
Kenya is offering the HPV vaccine for free as part of the country's routine immunization schedule to 10-year-old girls. Doctors say the vaccine is a major milestone in the fight against cervical cancer in East Africa, which has the highest rate in the world.
Parents are encouraged to take their children for immunization, but all the same, a vaccination doesn't give one guarantee that you may not get the cancer, but studies in developed countries have shown that actually the rate of cervical cancer goes down with planned proper immunization.
At least 7 women die every day in Kenya from cervical cancer, according to the Ministry of Health. The ministry says the HPV vaccine could cut the rate of cervical cancer by up to 70% if they reach their target coverage.
We have managed to distribute the vaccines in all the 47 counties, in all the facilities, public facilities. We have covered upwards of 300,000 girls to date. The target continues because our target is 800,000 girls.
At least 115 countries have made the HPV vaccine routine, including in East Africa. Rwanda first introduced the vaccine in 2006, followed by Uganda in 2015 and Tanzania in 2018. While Kenya normally leads developments in the region, its efforts in preventing cervical cancer are seen by many, including Agunja, as better late than never. Raya Lombor for VOA News, Nairobi.
The World Health Organization says that spinal pain contributes more to the global burden of disease than diseases such as HIV, diabetes, and stroke combined. The spine is made up of small bones called vertebrae, and medical experts say it is the backbone of our ability to move, sleep, and function properly. Dr. Selam Aklilu is the founder of First Chiropractic and Rehabilitation Wellness Clinic in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. She discusses some issues that can affect the spine in the African context and a few steps to prevent them.
Chiropractic it's a neuromusculoskeletal specialty. That is muscle, the nerves, the bones, especially focusing on the spine, okay? That is the focus of chiropractic treatment. Why is that? Our whole body is controlled by the nervous system. Think of the brain, you have the spinal cord in the neck passes through the neck, it passes through your armpit to move your arms. That means your arms are moving because your neck is right. Yes. Your back, the thoracic spine, the nerve coming from there controls every single organ. When somebody is bending like this, it affects the breathing center. Do you know we used to say smoking kills? Now, the new smoking is sitting. Sitting kills. Wow. When we sit, especially when we sit and bend and stay in the computer, we are affecting our heartbeat, our lungs, our stomach can't digest. We can shorten our life by just sitting.
Because we are sitting more than we used to because of computers and...
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Makes sense.
Our body is controlled by the nervous system. So if you keep your spine straight, you can be healthier.
Spinal pain, according to the WHO, contributes to the global burden of disease more than diseases like malaria, even HIV. That's really surprising.
Actually, in the world, 1 billion people are affected by spinal pain. And the bigger portion is in Africa.
What are some of the causes?
Actually, lifestyle is causing it, food is causing it, and hard labor, posture, incorrect lifting, incorrect working.
Low back pain is the #1 cause of disability.
What can we do? Creating awareness, just like what we're doing now, and really educating people to do prevention work. Some of the proposals that we have for that is, one is to have a 10-minute exercise for a labor-intense industry, to start with a warm-up exercise for people to be present in their body so they will prevent work injury. And obviously they will be much more productive workers for the company as well, yes, as having a more healthier nation. And the other one we propose is in schools. In schools, children are sitting improperly, they're carrying heavy things, and even when they go home, they might have to fetch water, they might have to help their parents. How do they carry? The fact that somebody bend from the knees when they pick up something makes a huge difference compared to bending from the waist when they carry something. As simple as that can really prevent a lot of our injuries. But more than anything, I would like to really nudge our scientific communities in Africa, the engineers, create something for us so we can carry better. Our mothers, our fathers can really work, not toiling their body.
But when we look at agriculture, for example, the posture is not necessarily the best.
Yes, you know what? Just the fact that we're talking about posture is affecting our health. Do we know what our spine means for our health? The spine is the backbone of health. If a person's spine is not properly aligned, that means the nervous system is not working properly. So the body is affected. So is this information available to our farmers? Do they know what it means? When I bend from the neck improperly, it really affects my whole health. Even the people in our offices that are sitting on the computer all day, by just bending your neck forward, it really affects the whole spine and nervous system, and the mechanoreceptors in your spine even alters your awareness and your sharpness. For a person to get up for half a minute, for 30 seconds, to straighten up the spine and really breathe and be present in the body, that makes such a huge difference.
And Dr. Aklilu reiterates that remembering to practice good posture and eating a well-balanced diet can help maintain a healthy spine. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenoreMoudou. Esther?
Thank you so much, Leno. All right. Be sure to watch Leno Moudou's health report every Tuesday on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.